Hello and welcome to the Talking Michigan Transportation Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Cranston. Community leaders advocating for improvements at an important interchange in West Michigan, Fruit Ridge Avenue and I-96, received some very good news recently when the Legislature approved funds for the project. First, I'll be speaking with an MDOT engineer who has been thinking about and planning for this project for some time. Later, we'll hear from State Representative Carol Glanville, who played a key role in securing the funds. So Erick is the Grand Region Engineer for the Department of Transportation here in Michigan, and that means that he's in charge of the counties that include the city of Grand Rapids, cities of Muskegon, Grand Rapids, suburban communities, Walker, Wyoming, Kentwood, really the West Michigan Population Center. And he's been one way or another in one job that led to this job, been thinking about the Fruit Ridge Avenue interchange on I-96, very important to both the movement of agricultural products and commercial products, and certainly the industries in the city of Walker for many years. So, Erick, we got some really good news this week. Came a little bit out of left field, but it's a great surprise that the state has put $25 million into a supplemental appropriation that'll help get this project going. Talk about what it takes to why it takes so long, I guess, to do this kind of thing when you know that that interchange is functionally obsolete and has needed upgrading for some time.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to join your great, show here and everything. Hopefully, I don't negatively impact your listeners and everything by having me on it.
Yeah.
With that said, though, exciting news here. Whoever said Fridays are a slow day and everything, it's really actually become, the busiest day. These type of things take time, and with that, it goes really to the partnerships and the collaborations that, you invest in with people of the, city of Walker, legislator, other community members and everything, just to talk about these type of things. And I kind of look at it like everyone, is really starting to understand, MDOT and the asset management that we do. But when you have hot spots, they don't necessarily always agree or appreciate the asset management. And this one in particular, Fruit Ridge, really the conversation started, back, late 90s, when we started trying to optimize that area with the existing 2-lane bridge. We did some ramp work trying to move things around and try to improve operations the best we can without widening the 2-lane bridge, and that seemed to work. Years agricultural kind of now changed into other industries, manufacturing north of there really started to get on the city's radar in attracting businesses and expanding businesses. Mid 2000s, the Walker over 96 bridge, through collaboration with, City of Walker, additional funding, Kent County Road Commission, that bridge was widened and everything. And so, here you're on one end of, the spectrum, and you have this old 2-lane bridge on the other end. And kind of to balance things out, the focus shifted to this bridge again. How can we, maximize and adjust for the future? So the conversations have been going on, and it really hasn't mattered what side of the aisle you're on. The West Michigan way is collaborative and, partnerships. So, we've been in conversations with the, Grand Rapids Chamber, the Right Place, local officials, state, federal, trying to, again, maximize our limited preservation dollars so people could learn to appreciate our asset management more. And with the news there with this additional $25 million in the what looks to be the supplemental bill, there's a lot of excitement and energy.
So in talking with Representative Carol Glanville, who represents that area and previously was a Walker City Commissioner, and she's been plugged into this for a long time, and the need from both a commuter and an economic development standpoint to do that. The city of Walker has been very aggressive over the years about developing industrial parks and attracting businesses, and the 96 corridor, the access is a huge factor in that. And obviously, like you mentioned, those partnerships matter. But going back to that point about asset management and what transportation officials across the country, and especially in states like Michigan that have been so underfunded in transportation for so many decades, have had to focus on maintaining what they have and extending the life of assets. So when you look at something like this, where you really do need something new, and we don't get to do new things very often, not nearly as much as we probably need to, how does that get prioritized? How do you decide? We've got all these people with their hands up and all good projects, all good ideas, and there's only so many things we can do. How do you balance that?
It starts with the conversation and being open and honest. In particular over here, we've gone as far as it's a blessing and a curse, but we have a top 10 of number ones, and we need to look at these things and prioritize, and maybe with doing so, you recognize, these are the dollars that we have for it, but, could we leverage other dollars? And, this particular area, with the city of Walker, because they have been aggressive, but they've also always indicated they want to be at the table and help with, the solution. And whether that is financial or making the connections and everything, Walker has always been a great partner with that. And we could, list a lot of other positive outcomes with them. So, that is where it started here. I want to say, 2015, 16, I can't remember the specific year in terminology, but, with the city of Walker, we started pursuing federal grants, under the Tiger program, then build, the infra and everything, looking to see what we could, leverage with MDOT's limited preservation dollars and the monies that the city could put forward and everything, with the hope of getting enough money to have more than a preservation type project out there. So with doing that, we've taken other steps to kind of continue, pushing this location out where it made sense and everything. I try to say we want to be a part of the conversation. We don't, want to become the conversation. And that's where we were headed, with Fruit Ridge, if we didn't have, some additional help with these dollars.
So we don't know what the design will be right now. There's probably a couple of ideas that make sense, but in the end, you're going to have more. It's a 2-lane bridge now, the local road that crosses 96, and it would be probably more like 5 lanes with a turning lane and also some pedestrian, cycling, multimodal access. What would be the benefits of that you could incorporate in rebuilding this interchange?
Well, you're absolutely right. And I think for discussion purposes, everyone looked to Walker, said, 5 lanes, non-motorized, and that needs to be here. And thus that have been having the conversation, whether it's, the city or, ourselves or a combination of that, we said, well, let's use that for a visual aid to, set the, the parameters on the big ask. But the realization is, it could be somewhere, less than that. But with doing this, it will address, the pedestrian, the non-motorized and everything, of which, if you go back to the 90s, when I said we did some of those ramp realignments, it did nothing to the existing bridge. So even that work there, worked on moving, vehicular traffic, different and reducing the pinch points, but it never did anything for getting pedestrians and, bikes or wherever through the interchange, from the south to the north or vice versa. So that is the other piece, with, this money and doing a complete refresh look at this location, you're getting into more all modes, not just vehicular.
So what else do you see? Beyond the obvious safety and congestion benefits and economic development, what else would you see are advantages of being able to finally rebuild this?
A connection and everything, like you said, is to there you can see it's a pinch point in everything. There is non-motorized on the north side that you just can't get to. And like I said, is by opening this up, I think it provides the redundancy and additional connectivity that is needed in this area of Walker.
Yeah, the growth continues. I think it was announced in December that they're going to build another 200,000 square foot industrial facility, right there near the interchange. Obviously, the high school isn't far away from there. A number of businesses, small and medium and large, all nearby. So yeah, it makes sense in a lot of ways. So that's great. Now a new chapter begins in trying to make this a reality.
No, that's exactly it. It's a lot of now excitement to those conversations that we all knew needed to happen, but we're wearing out just looking at each other because neither one of us had the finances to do it alone or together. So this is definitely something that everyone's excited about.
Well, I know you hate to be pinned down on this, but late January 2023, what's your optimistic timeline?
Optimistic timeline, I like to say, some point 24 into 25, you could see something happening out there. And the big thing is, I think now you're going to see something happening. It's not just talk and everything. And that's where, people were getting a little frustrated and getting back to that appreciation of asset management and everything. Now I can see people coming together because we have, what looks like the money to this new vision.
Well, I certainly admire your patience and that of others who plan and design and ultimately build these projects because it just takes time. So
it takes time, and I can't, emphasize enough, this is what we mean about the relationship and collaboration and everything, because you got to go at it together. You can't go at it singularly.
Yeah, well said. Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate your insight on this, and good luck with the project.
Well, thanks a lot, Jeff. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and others about this exciting opportunity ahead.
Thank you again, Eric. Stay tuned. I'll be back with State Representative Carol Glanville after this.
Did you know Newton's first law of motion states that a body in motion will continue moving at the same speed and same direction, while the second law states that an object acted upon by the force will undergo...
Wait, I thought this was a snowplow safety message.
It is, which is why this is relevant.
Don't you think that's complicating things just a bit?
Not at all. A snowplow weighs 17 times more than your average car.
Right, and snowplows tend to travel at slower than posted speeds.
So the third law states that action and reaction are equal and opposite.
I think it's easier just to remind motorists to give plows the room they need to do their jobs. Follow at a safe distance and don't drive into snow clouds. Things like that.
Well, if you're gonna make it that simple, why don't you just say, don't crowd the plow?
Great idea. Stay safe this winter. Don't crowd the plow.
That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Welcome back. As promised, the second segment of this podcast is going to feature Representative Carol Glanville, who represents the city of Walker, part of the west side of Grand Rapids as well. And before joining the State House of Representatives, she was a city commissioner in Walker. And one of the things that she's long been a proponent of, advocate for, is an improved interchange at Fruit Ridge Avenue and I-96. As you heard explained by MDOT Grand Region Engineer Erick, this has been long in the making, required a lot of patience from a lot of people. But thanks to some bipartisan support in the legislature and the advocacy of Representative Glanville, we got very good news this week. That $25 million is included in a supplemental appropriation to get this thing over the finish line. So congratulations and thank you for taking time to be here.
Oh, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's a very exciting project, and I'm happy to be able to share with your listeners, what we got going on and how it all came to be.
Talk about why this was particularly important to you. I mean, it's about a lot of things, right? Economic development, commuters, congestion, serves a lot of different business interests, agricultural, manufacturing. But how did this particularly become important to you?
Well, the one thing you didn't mention in there is trails. And so a few years back, I was the president of our local trail group here in the city of Walker. And we've been working to build this connection between the White Pine and the Muscatawa trails there. And this will finish that portion off and just pull everything together regionally as a trail. And so when we were first working on that proposal through the city, this was before I was even a commissioner. I was writing letters of support as we were working on a federal grant. So to pull in that piece of the non-motorized transportation that's going to be served as well by the connection there. So really excited that piece fell into place as well.
I am sorry I didn't throw that in the mix because I did talk to Erick about that and the fact that there would be room for non-motorized paths along the newly built bridge. And I've ridden out there several times myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about and how that connection would help, because both those trails, Muscatawa and White Pine, are heavily used and some great outdoor assets. So that's an important point.
Yeah, and I've seen people riding their bikes. I've ridden my bike over that bridge. Probably not my smartest life choice, but live to tell the story. So
yeah, well, talk about how did you work to get your colleagues, some of whom are very new, and we're in the first month of the new term, to quickly understand why this was important and why it would be helpful?
Yeah. So, when I came in, in the special election last year, late May, we didn't have a chance to really talk about it during the budget cycle for June. But when we were looking at a supplemental this fall, I brought it right to leadership right away, shared it with Joe Tate, who was then the appropriations chair. And of course, we didn't move on a supplemental last year. So it was still top of mind. I'd been working with MDOT, MEDC, the local folks here, local leadership, the GR Chamber, Walker City folks, to continue moving this forward. And so when we had the opportunity, I was able to explain to my colleagues that this is not just, it sounds like a Walker project, but it has huge regional impact because we've had such substantial economic growth right in that particular area within a 2-mile radius, including a Michigan State Police post that uses that bridge, a secondary access. And of course, all the economic development there, industrial growth. This has become, really a commuter crossover. It serves Newaygo County, Muskegon County, Ottawa County, and Kent County. So it's not just this local project for us, but getting folks into and out of Grand Rapids, particularly as we continue to expand north and west. So I think they saw the value in that and they were willing to vote yes.
Yeah, I think going to that point just last month, December, I think there was new construction announced of another 200,000 square foot industrial facility right there at the interchange, some 30 acres. Some of that is wetlands, but that's the kind of thing that's been going on out there for a long time as the city of Walker has been, really forward thinking and aggressive about developing industrial parks and taking advantage of the freeway access. Something else that always interests me, and people around the state might not know why this is called Fruit Ridge Avenue, but the Ridge is an incredibly powerful fruit growing region in our state and among the tops in the country, really. They produce like $1 billion or 1 billion pounds of apples. They're sold in 32 states and 18 countries on the Ridge. So knowing how Fruit Ridge got its name and why it's still such an important north-south corridor probably matters in all of this. So what are you looking forward to, when you're out there to cut a ribbon and see in terms of quality of life advantages?
Well, it's just going to be huge. I especially said that whole piece with the trail. This is also a main corridor to our local school district. Kennewick Hills High School and Middle School are across the highway on that northern side. And so all the bus traffic, all the kiddos driving to school, as the young drivers, this, you have to understand visually, if people, who don't know the bridge, to appreciate the impact. It's a 5-lane road coming from the south, and it's a 5-lane road coming from the north, and the bridge is 2 lanes. So it's a complete choke point, and it was designed at a time when they were doing, the way that it's designed for the off ramps from the highway create a real safety hazard as well, because they don't align with the existing intersection. They were doing them at that time so that they were kind of these off ramps that just kind of merged into the local road rather than coming to the intersection. So it's really, in terms of quality of life, it's going to improve, commute for folks. It's going to be far safer designed, and really just promote, easier access to the whole area. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. And you never know if you're finished until you are. And when you were letting folks back home know late yesterday that this had finally been achieved, well, it must have been really nice sharing that news.
It was, yeah, it was really exciting. I mean, everybody, we were just thrilled. I was kind of sitting on pins and needles because I knew much earlier in the day that it was going to be going through, but I, couldn't announce it until, we do actually take the vote. So it was pretty late last night, around 8:30, and then we were able to release the news and got a lot of great positive feedback. I've been happy to share it with my trail folks, and they're just thrilled. A lot of local people are making, all kinds of positive comments. And so I think, everybody, this is one of those projects I'm sure we'll hear about the headaches when we actually start doing it, but because it is such a popular route. But at the same time, it's one of those things that everybody is just relieved. There's no detractors on this one. So it's great to just get it across the finish line and be able to do something really good, not just for, the city, but for the region.
Yeah, it's a highly visual area, so I would hope you're right. There's always frustrations when you take away something for a while, the short-term pain. But I would hope being able to see the progress, because it'll be so out in the open, that'll keep people's patience alive, at least for the construction period.
Sure. Well, and I'm sure Walker, they do a real good job of communicating with the public. So I'm sure they'll do, have the renderings available and everything, so folks really understand, the impact of this and what it's going to look like when it's done. And it's really, they said it's going to also kind of direct folks back into the community, because it will really be a welcoming center. I mean, a welcoming place to get off the highway. It'll draw a lot more attention to what's there, that I think a lot of folks, who are driving by on 196 or 96, they don't necessarily pay attention to it too much until they need to get off there. So yeah,
Erick Kind, the region engineer, mentioned what a great partner the city has been over the years, and there's a number of things that I know MDOT has done in partnership, including the roundabouts and Remembrance Road, and it's always been a great collaboration. Is there anything else you want to say about this, or does that kind of cover it?
No, I think that covers it. He said it's just one of those projects. Like I said, it's a great project that it's been needed for a long time, and it's going to really elevate the community in many, many ways. So I'm thrilled that we were able to get it through early this year, so we can get started on it.
Yeah, well, congratulations again.
Oh, thanks so much, Jeff. I appreciate it.
I'd like to thank you once more for tuning in to Talking Michigan Transportation. You can find show notes and more on Apple Podcasts or Buzzsprout. I also want to acknowledge the talented people who help make this a reality each week, starting with Randy Debler, who skillfully edits the audio, Jesse Ball, who proofs the content, Courtney Bates, who posts the podcast to various platforms, and Jackie Salinas, who transcribes the audio to make it accessible to all.